G'day, legends. Welcome back to Roadside, presented by Zwift. This is the Tour de France Femmes lift out, our first episode. We are recapping stages 1 to 4. Stage 5 is on right now, and we'll be discussing some other big topics throughout this episode, such as Demi Vollering and has she done herself no favors on the PR front. We'll also be discussing why the Tour de France Femmes needs to have its standalone date away from the Tour de France from the men's edition, and of course going through a couple of the injuries and DNFs that have occurred throughout this year's race. Tommy, we've gone from the men's tour straight into the women's tour. It's cycling. It's just cycling fanfare right now, isn't it, for us fans?
Yeah, it's on, mate. It's unrelenting at the moment, to be honest. I sort of fell off a cliff at the Tour de France Homs, and oh my Lord, you have one night off. But I had one night off, and to be honest, I didn't watch the Paris stage. I just watched the highlights, and I just died. And then I've picked up where we left off with the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. How good is it though? Like the levels it just keeps getting better every year, and this year it's continued that pathway, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the biggest, I think with the level, the easiest thing to notice is that the bunch is a lot more compact and there's a lot more riders, or a lot less riders getting dropped early on in the stage. Whereas the very first Tour de France Femmes, when it was sort of, brought on again, there were riders that would get dropped sort of early. So now we're seeing that front of the peloton actually very competitive to stay towards the front. But it's been great. I've loved the early finishes. So the stages are shorter. So they're action-packed. There's no room for rolling around, taking pisses after half an hour like the men's do and just pissing around. The women are in there, and it's all in. You get about 3 or 4 breakaways per stage. There's always jostling for position to be at the front, probably a bit too much, actually. And then it's sort of done after 2 or 3 hours. So much more palatable for cycling fans who have to go to work the next day.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more there. Honestly, can the Tour de France men's take note of that? Can we get old Christian Prudhomme onto that? Because those early starts, it would just... I think it was the first stage of the women's where the men started earlier. And I'm in bed, and I do the whole sort of the big screen down to the small screen. So I'm in bed watching the finale, generally the men's, and my partner will just be like, if you don't have headphones in, I will just knock you up. So... but I pulled my phone out, thinking, X amount to go, and it's, heading into the finale, and I went, yes.
Yeah.
Pack it up, get across the line, boys.
Yep. No, it is very, very good. So we're happy to see that, and SBS is doing a good job on the women's coverage of Grace Brown, featuring a lot throughout the SBS coverage this year, and she is an expert.
She's good, isn't she?
Yeah, she's a quality...
straight into the sort of the media production side, and she has not missed a beat, has she?
Quality chick, Grace Brown, and she's going to be have a big media career. Let's get into this episode. Tommy, this is Roadside, presented by Zwift. So, Tommy, we'll go through the first 4 stage winners of the tour. On stage 1, the opening stage, it was a very nice stage design, sort of a punchy, classic style finish, and also stage as well. Marianne Vos, she just etches herself, even more. Every time she steps on the bike, she won the first stage with a sprint ahead of Kim Lecourt-Pinard and her teammate, Pauline Prévost. And she took yellow for the second time in her career on the first day. She is, without a doubt, the greatest of all time for the women's cycling peloton ever. And, if you were thinking all cyclists, she would be up there for the men's as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Amazing, isn't it? Even casting us, looking a little bit ahead here in the other 4 stages, the other 3 stages, hasn't finished outside the top 5, which you just think is just so special. So the pure bunch sprints, she's there. The punchy stages, she's there. Her ability to position and fight for the right spot in the bunch is just, I would say, so. I don't know, why are we even surprised saying that this stage was sort of not tailor-made for her, but it certainly helped her out a lot. And as a result, she dusted up the crop. And, she showed everybody a clean set of heels on stage 1.
Yeah, she did. It's too easy to sort of pass up her palmarès. I mean, we've done it before in many other many other episodes of Roadside, but I'll just read out some of the highlights in case you haven't seen. Just on Pro Cycling Stats alone, 258 professional wins, and it is much more than that because it does not include her mountain bike, her track, which is there a lot of in the track, believe it or not, and her CX victories. Yeah, doesn't include CX on this particular one, even though she's an 8-time world champion. 5-time Lafeche Wallone, 3-time world road race champion. She's been the world champion in CX and on the track as well. European champion on the mountain bike. She's won she's won a gold medal at the Olympics 2012, Tour de Flanders, Amstel Gold, multiple stages of Tour de France Femmes, and just about every single race on the calendar. So absolute GOAT. Stage 2 was Mavi Garcia from Jayco Alula, or Live Alula Jayco. And Mavi Garcia on stage 2, another punchy stage. She is the perfect example, and Jayco as well, of no risk, no glory, as she won with a big late attack and held off the favourites as they got it wrong, chasing her down. Mavi has been I think she's 40 years old now. She's been late to cycling. She's a star, and she won the stage, Mavi Garcia. So a huge win, and it just goes to show, if you don't throw your hat in the ring, you don't win.
Obviously to win at the Tour is like season making, season defining, but for Live Alula Jayco at the moment, not the best year so far on paper. So for them to come down and I tell you what, mate, get one early. That will just take the edge off in everyone in that organisation, in that group. Stoked to see. And the way it was done, it was really interesting, wasn't it? Like you said, she went early, and then all of a sudden we saw the big move, the big surge that came, and that late attack from some of the favourites like Cassia Newdoma as well.
Petersa.
As well. So it was interesting. They were isolated pretty quickly. And then we saw Kopecky try to do the lead out. And just watching the last couple 100 meters, you go, they've mistimed this, haven't they? So, yeah, sometimes it does pay off to be bold and to get ahead of the race. And I hope more teams, as we enter different terrain, the second half of this year's race, we see that from some of those teams who don't have the big leaders, that they try and spread their resources a little bit. Because, yeah, as you see, and, Gussie is proof of the pudding, is that roll the dice and sometimes it turns up your way.
Absolutely. We'll remember, I think it was 2021. She was away solo at Strade Bianche, and she actually got caught just at the base of that final climb by Van Vleuten, I remember, and ended up coming second. But that was a big ride. But, with the women's peloton at the moment, because there's not really that huge depth of domestiques, the big beasts like your Niels Pollets, like your Wellens, your Benoots, they kind of aren't quite established yet. We've really only got the big leaders right now when it gets to the finale. Going late for a move like that, or going sort of 20 Ks to go, it's a really good move for the women's peloton right now, because it's happened quite a lot throughout the last 18 months where the peloton gets it wrong because the leaders don't want to control the race, and it isn't quite the domestiques there to get organised and bring them back. So I hope we see more of that from other teams and other riders. And one thing I did note on stage 2, Tommy, was when Cassia Newdoma was sort of first to ramp things up on the steep berg to try and get into that, get closer to Mavi, Demi Vollering on stage 2 did not look that good, I have to say. So that was interesting, although it was a punchy finish. Stage 3, Tommy, and stage 4, 2 in a row were won by the fastest woman on the planet, Lorena Wiebes, as she became the most winningest rider in terms of stages at the Tour de France Femmes.
Yeah, she's something else, isn't she? In the European national kit, the champs kit, she just dominated stage 3, didn't she? It was good to see Kim LaCourt as well. She took the yellow jersey in stage 2, becoming the first African to take that jersey. And then she lost it as well on stage 3 to Mariana Vos, I believe.
Yes.
So yellow jersey sort of changing back and forth there. But yeah, Wiebes, they just dominated. Looking at the sprint, she obviously they've got the luxury of having Kopecky to lead her out, which is just the sort of the Rolls Royce of lead outs, isn't it?
It is.
And
yeah.
I thought there was a moment as well when she kind of could have been caught on the barrier, or at least the door could have been shut off by Dygert. And fair play, she sort of kept the door open, didn't she? Giving Wiebes that narrow channel. But the battle for position I found really interesting, seeing the GC teams mix it in there. Obviously, FDJ, they were there to look after Demi, but also challenge with Ali.
They did the opposite of that.
What do you make of that, mate? So it's a hard thing to do when you're all in to try and win the GC. Does Ali need her sort of ambition? Does she need to take a back seat with that?
Absolutely not. I think when she got signed, Ali would have been made assurances that she's going to have some form of leadership at the Tour de France Femmes. She did get on stage 3. She did get 3rd place, her first podium at the Tour de France Femmes. And head to head on a relatively flat, easy, short stage, Ali is not going to be able to out sprint Loretta Wiebes. On a harder finish, it could be a little bit closer, but Ali's got a lot more development to come. She'll get faster. She'll get fitter. But splitting the ambitions between a sprinter and a GC rider has always been historically a challenge for the men's teams. And of course, we're going to see it in the women's as well, particularly when you get to these finales. And I have to say, the FDJ directors and also Demi herself made a huge mistake in stage 3, because with 5Ks to go on the sprint stage, the ruling is 5Ks to go, the GC riders can sit up. They get the same time as the peloton. Demi was involved in a crash at 3.7 Ks to go.
Wait, hold up. But isn't that only if they have a crash, then they get the same time?
No. They could just sit at the back, and that's it. They could just sit at the back and just cruise in, right? So they get the same time. So obviously they have to finish the stage with the peloton, but they can sit at the back. And this is the point. When Demi was in the peloton before she crashed, she's sitting in the middle of the peloton, right in the belly as the sprint, not on the sides where she's got exits, not sort of at the back where she could break and move to the side, or even at the front. She's sitting in the middle with no teammates, and she gets squeezed on a corner and lays it down and hurts her knee and bangs her head. And I'm just thinking, all of the other GC contenders are sitting at the back. She doesn't need to be there. Why put yourself at more risk when you're already in the safe zone? So it was a huge error from FDJ. Isn't it just common sense? Like, get to the back. You don't need to be in the middle.
Make those decisions, though. They're moving so quickly. They're coming up to a few squeezing points into the final 5 kilometers. Maybe I don't think there was an easy moment there where she could have just swung off and pulled out. And also maybe she goes, I'm actually in a right position here. I'm just going to hold this position. I think at the end of the day, you look at the crash. The crash was just a squeeze on a right hand. She was in the top 20 wheels.
In the middle.
I thought that she was actually like okay position. And I thought it was a case of, I don't know, a bit of a racing incident.
Why
You're
wasn't
right.
she
You can take risks.
She needs to be at the back.
Exactly. Yes.
Because it gets to 5K. It's a simple bit of coaching and directing in the car. As soon as it hits 5Ks to go, the riders might not know that because they're full gas. They're not looking at their screen. It's the director's job to say, hey, Demi, 5Ks, you can now drift to the back slowly, drift to the back safely. She goes to the back. It was 1.3 kilometers past that point. So let's say 3.5 minutes they'd passed that point. Big mistake by FDJ. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on. So we'll skip to the next stage, which of course we've mentioned was Wiebes winning again. We'll get into the GC. We must also mention that at the start of the tour, we lost many top riders with sickness. Gastro bug was going around. We saw Loretta Hansen get caught up late as another Australian, Amanda Spratt, went down with gastro sickness. Marlon Russa, one of the favourites for the GC for Movistar, went down with gastro. Charlotte Cool crashed on stage 1 and she was out. So Wiebes' biggest competition, 2 stages last year, and the yellow jersey, she was out. So we lost some superstars. Kopecky, not in good shape because of her knee and her back, although she won't complain about that because she gets on with it. So we lost a number of riders. But Tommy, the current GC as of end of stage 4, what is it, mate?
At the top, the greatest of all time, Marianne Vos. She's got a 12-second buffer ahead of Lorena Wiebes. In third was the yellow jersey wearer on stage 2. That is Lecourt. In fourth, we've got Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, and then in the top 5, the defending champion, Nieuwe-Doma, then Vollering, Van der Breggen, Pietrus, and then the Kiwi, Fisher Black, all the way down at 30 seconds, and then Dygert. So you've got a lot of riders sort of, from Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. She's sitting at 18 seconds in 4th. Those riders, I think they'd be pretty happy, with that time gap. Wiebes, Voss, they're not going to be, obviously challenging for the overall. So that'd be pretty stoked with their GC. Navigating these 4 sort of stages. Maybe Vollering, the only blight is that crash, isn't it?
Yes, we'll touch on that for sure. And a little bit lower down the rankings, who will figure in the GC later, Paulina Ruyakas, of course, on the podium last year. She's down in 15th. She's 41 seconds back from Voss, and also, of course, Sergio Gante doing very well by her standards, only losing 50 seconds when she is probably, and again, we'll talk about this in a minute, the best climber in the race when it comes to the final 2 or last stages, in my opinion. Yes. What about the jerseys, Tommy? Who's in the jerseys right now as of stage 4?
Yeah, from FDJ, we've got in the poker, Chabet, and then obviously Wiebes in the green, and then Julie Begor from Cofidis in the young white jersey. The jerseys, obviously, they're sort of the crumbs, but we see them swept up by some of the bigger riders more often than not. You reckon that's going to be the same at this year's Tour de France, same as last year sort of thing?
For Webers, will pick up the sprint. As for the white, I think there's a few contenders there. I'm not sure if Evita Muzic is of age to secure that jersey. She's 26. No, she's not. Actually, you know what? Sergio Gante I think she was second in that competition last year.
She would have been
she will be in the box seat, and maybe Neem Fisher Black as well is a sniff. So we'll wait and see, and maybe both of them also a chance for the poker. But FE Sports, Tommy, they look after us. We love FE Sports. Actually, just have.
Oh, you've ran off.
No, just got myself a new front light from FE Sports, one of their brands.
What do you got? Show me that.
GAC Iron. I don't know how to say it, but they sell these beautiful lights here. Got myself a new front light for the gravel bike from where are we from here? Don't know, but they're good. But I was going to say we are giving away a set of Magene power meter pedals next week on Monday. We will post a reel.
Very nice.
On our social media page, Tommy. What is it, by the way, for the listeners?
Do they take their own? They also obviously Roadside Cycling on Instagram and all the socials. Do they take their own cleats? What sort of cleats do these use?
Good question. I don't know. It's Shimano. It is Shimano. So these days they do Shimano. They do. It is Shimano because even Favero Asiomas, which are also FE Sports, they have actually changed their newest design to include Shimano SBD compatible, and you have to wear those weird cleats that you used to be able to do with the Gen 1s. But anyway, Monday week, pay attention to our page, and you can win yourself a set of power meter pedals, which we'll give away thanks to Magene. Let's get into our Quad Lock Tour talking points, Tommy, right after this.
They're worth $800.
So, Tommy, the Quad Lock Tour talking points. Use Roadside 10 for any discount on the Roadside Quad Lock products. And also Friday, which is tomorrow when this podcast drops, is your last chance to comment on the reel on our Facebook page to try and win that $200 Quad Lock voucher. Tommy, in terms of the GC for the tour, which we're looking ahead to for the Women's Tour de France, stages 7, 8, and 9 are the key decisive stages with the mountains. Stage 8 is a cracker in particular, where they finish up the top of the Col de Madeleine, which of course we saw in the men's tour. That is going to be a huge race decider.
Yeah, it's going to be massive, isn't it? That's really the day where you think the Gigantes, the Vollerings are going to come to the forefront. Starting in Chambéry, it's about 110 kilometers to the top of the Col de Madeleine. We know how hard that climb is, but also keep an eye on the final stage of this year's race, mate. That is going to be a bit of a doozy as well. I'm a fan of it. I know you're not a fan of this final stage. They conquer the Col des Ox Plant, which is an uncategorized, or at least a Cat 1, right in the middle of a 110 kilometer stage. And then they've only got another Cat 2 till the finish. So we've got the big summit finish on stage 8. Stage 7, medium mountain days. I've got a descent down into the valley. And that is from Bourg-en-Bresse to Chambéry. And then the next day, obviously, Chambéry with the Madeleine. But stage 9, I'm a fan of this sort of route and this sort of parcours that's been selected with the 3 big climbs, more so in the middle of the stage. I think it opens up the race, particularly now that Vollering, who you would say is probably the hot favourite coming into the race. I think this sort of neutralises her a little bit, particularly even more so now that she's had a crash.
Well, I think with stage 7 is really just one big climb. I'm trying to read that Col de Granier, 8.9 k's at 5%. That's not your typical alpine climb. That's not your Gigantes, your Nîmes Fisher Blacks style of operation. They wouldn't really like that climb that much before they descend down to the bottom. And Sarah Gigante would definitely probably not like that descent. But the way they're setting it up is that stage 8, the Col de Madeleine, stage 7, one of your climbing favourites wins the stage, takes yellow. And stage 8, the organisers obviously want the stage 7 winner and whoever will be in GC at that point to defend against the pure climbers on the Col de Madeleine on their turf, 19 Ks, 8.1% average.
How's
gradient.
The climb at the start of the stage?
Yes, that's going to be some. Unfortunately, stage 8 is probably where we're going to see a lot of out of the time limits on a stage like that, with how fast they'll climb the Col de Madeleine. But yeah, we're going to see the pure climbers come to play on stage 8. And I tell you what, if Sarah Gigante is there with the peloton, which she can be because there's not too much descending in the lead up to Col de Madeleine, she will win that stage. On an 18-kilometre, 8% climb, there is no one that can beat Sarah Gigante at the
You're locking that in?
Yes, I'm locking that in.
Does that win her the Tour de France if she wins the summit finish then?
It depends how much time she loses from now until then, which unfortunately Sarah's still working on riding in the bunch and her positioning. And with 3 or 4 stages to go and descending 2, she probably will give up some more time. It just depends by how much. But she's a massive chance here, a massive chance on stage 8.
Yeah, so you're worried about on stage 7, the descent off the Col de Granier. You're concerned about that descent into Chambéry for Gigante.
Well, not so. I mean, she'll probably lose a little bit of time there, but by the time they get to the top of that, they're going to be in drips and drabs. They'll be in the top 10 sort of wheels, that sort of stuff. And I'm more concerned about stages 6 and tonight as well, stage 5, where she may lose some time here or there. But if she arrives to, I think she'll still arrive to the Col de Madeleine, stage 8, less than a minute 40 from GC. That's what I think she'll be at. And the way she's climbing, 18 kilometers, you never know what can happen, but she can definitely take the stage, Tom.
So you think you think, honestly, like if you put Vollering and Gigante say just at the bottom or a pure summit finish, Gigante gets the better of Vollering?
Well, and Ruyakas and Neuerdoma, they need to be in that conversation too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think with Vollering's, I think with her compromised state of having the crash and all the pressures that come with it from now until then, I feel like her level will be diminished, and that brings her in the same. I think we're going to see Neuerdoma, Gigante, Vollering, Ruyakas all together on that, and I think Sarah, she's gonna do it.
Yeah, wow. Okay, I like to see that. Wouldn't that be something, hey? That'd be special to see her in the mix. Obviously, from an Australian perspective, really liking the fact that Neuerdoma. I think this year's parkour suits her. It's hard. It's gritty. The first half was just that technical, get through it, survive. She's done just that. Particularly her and Pauline Bravo. They just looked really good, didn't they? The pair of them.
They did, and how about the one of everyone else thinks this? Cassia Neuerdoma, she's the defending champion, and does she have no pressure at all on her externally to win this? She says she's just here to have a good time, try and ride the best she can. Wow. There's no pressure on here. It feels like all the pressure is on Vollering's shoulders.
It does. It does, doesn't it?
And with her crash, that brings us to our next point, and that we want to discuss, and it'd be interesting to see what everyone thinks here as well. In my personal opinion, particularly in the last 2 years, I think Demi Vollering needs a bit of an attitude check because she makes it so hard for cycling fans to support her with the way that she carries on when things don't go her way. Now, we saw last year she had the crash, which took about a minute or so out of her GC bid. And in the end, it was Webers, her own teammate, that crashed her. And she complained that the peloton didn't stop for her. And even though the race was on, it just wasn't happening. The peloton was stopping at that point. The race was on. And then we get to this crash on stage 3, and she's in the wrong position. She has made an error. Her team has made an error. And then they get to the end of the stage, and the director was saying, "Oh, blaming the peloton. They need to have more respect for Demi because she wants to ride up the front." And they were cutting her off all the time. And obviously, that's Demi saying to the directors, saying, "Hey, they were cutting me off, etc." I just feel like there's too much sooking from Demi Vollering, and she's in a great position to just suck it up, grit your teeth, and here's an opportunity to win with so much adversity thrown at you and overcome, and you gain so many more fans as opposed to sooking, dropping your head and blaming everyone except yourself potentially for being in the wrong position. So I just wish Demi would make it easier for us to like her. She's already one of the most marketable athletes in the women's sport, but she makes it very hard for fans to relate to her and like her when you compared her to Kopecky, who just gets it done, no fuss, or Cassia, who's carefree and has the weight on her shoulders sometimes and shows her emotion. But with Demi, I don't know, she makes it hard, Tommy.
Yeah, maybe it's a case of just managing that external communication. You can say whatever you want when you get on the bus, but when you're off the bus, and I think maybe the pressure of the environment might just be piling on top of her. But I also just kind of don't mind it in a sense. I think she knows that there's this level of expectation that she's going to challenge for the win at a minimum. And she just wants to give herself that chance, come these mountain stages. So realistically, in her mind, she's just looking at the first 4 stages that she's through now. She's only lost 25 seconds. She's had one crash, yes. I think she just goes, thank God I'm through that crap. Just stuff that, stuff everybody else. It's me against the world. Bring it on. I kind of like that a little bit. Like, let's go. She's fired up. She does have a little bit of a dog in her to try and sort of come out. She's just that competitive, isn't she? That she just doesn't, maybe not really caring what people think, or she kind of wants it her own way and she wants everybody to walk to the beat of her own drum. But that's what the big leaders sort of do, isn't it? But sometimes it's got to be do as I do, not do what I say. So, wait and see. And it'll be interesting to see how this sort of Tour de France turns out if she doesn't get the result, or at least the situation that she wants or is envisaged. So that'll be really interesting to see how that sort of plays out, this back end of the Tour de France.
Yes.
Whether you like her or not, she's going to animate this tour.
Yes, and we've 100%. She needs to be a part of it. She is the big favourite, and it does feel like for some reason all the weight is still on Vollering's shoulders and none on Cassia. So Canyon Tran playing a blinder there. Now here's the other big one, Tommy. This is just, nobody can argue with this. This is ridiculous. The Tour de France Femmes needs its own standalone dates. The fact that it overlapped with the men's tour, the last 2 stages or the last final stage this year, was a disgrace, because not only did we have, the women's tour stage 1 started before the Montmartre stage. That's fine. But all the marketing and promotion and this amazing marketing machine that Tour de France Femmes, avec, Zwift is, the promotion is just, it's one of the best promotion sort of campaigns, I think, for any major sporting event is the women's Tour de France. But when you have to start all that sort of in the fortnight leading up to the race, you're doing all your promotion during the men's tour, and I don't feel like you're hitting the entire market because it's been overshadowed by the biggest race in the world, and it shouldn't be for casual fans. Of course, real hardcore fans will be paying attention to both, obviously, but it needs to have its own date so that it can have its own fanfare. The promotional can grab all the audience that it really should without having anything else shading it. And then it can be its own story, because by now, and we all know it is, the women's Tour de France is its own beast. It doesn't need to stand with the men's anymore. And in fact, in Europe, as it stands right now, over the last 2 years, many of the biggest women's races and also the women's Tour de France have gained more viewership on European television compared to the equivalent of the men. So it's clear it deserves its own dates and it shouldn't be overlapping.
I can't add much more to that. That's Jet
But
having
where
a big
would it be,
spray.
Tommy? Like last year, we had it in August because of the Olympics, and that kind of they sort of scheduled it that way, and it worked. But that's because the Olympics are there, and now the Olympics disappear, and it goes back to overlapping. Like I think the August date works.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I for one as well. You know, you get to the end of the men's Tour de France, and you just sort of fall off on a cliff. You know, try bringing it forward. Maybe have it before the men's. And why does it need to feature around the men's Tour de France? Mm-hmm. Like it's such a good event. It's such a good product. The racing is bloody brilliant. It is a standalone event. It's a standalone event, and I want to say that. And that also puts stress on organisations looking to cover the sport. You know, there was for the first couple of stages where there was the overlap. There wasn't as many photographers. There wasn't as many journos. They were all in Paris where this race was coming on. So you're missing out on a little bit more exposure. And, you know, as soon as sort of 3 and 4, everyone sort of made their way over following Paris. And, you got stuck in. But, that for one, in my mind, is a key element when you're trying to organise this. But they are obviously trying to capture the same TV market, which I kind of understand. So they're going to have to play around with it, aren't they? They're going to have to try and do a few different things to see what works best.
Do you remember seeing, I completely agree. Do you remember seeing during the SBS coverage any adverts for the Tour de France Femmes during the men's racing?
Nah, I couldn't recall off the top of my head.
I don't think there was not my Australian feed.
Yeah, there was a few. There was a few in the last week of the men's tour. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So it might have been the last week. Okay, just checking. But yes, I think, before would be great. And I think there also needs to be a significant gap. I think a fortnight at the very least, if it's possible. Because between the men's and the women's, I think at least, because as viewers, like you said, we do get fatigue.
A week.
We need to switch off. We just need a little bit of a break before we round up and get excited again for racing and apply ourselves and ruin our mornings.
If you have a 2-week break, it would be hard, for example, to take the SBS team who obviously go over there and they cover the men's. And then if you've got a 2-week gap, you're going to be sitting idle. You're not going to come back and forth. So I get when you put it in one big block, it does. It's the most efficient use of resources. But I just think maybe you have a day or two, maybe even 2 days, 3 days, and then you start the tour. I think this was actually put to Grace Brown about the length of the Tour de France Femmes, and she said she made the expert opinion, and you know she's been it, she's done it, and she was kind of said maybe it doesn't need to be 3 weeks, but if you could run a race maybe with the amount of stages that run across 3 weekends, I think that would be an interesting, or at least, you know, sort of the 2 weekends, rather. That could be an interesting way of looking at it and stacking it after the men's Tour de France or before.
Where do you think, just quickly, where do you think the women's Tour de France Femmes, or the Tour de France Femmes, avec Zwift, where do you think that will land? What do you think it's in terms of stage length? How many stages? How many do you think is the sweet spot for the future that'll settle into for the remainder?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm not part of that 12. Cycling world close enough.
I think 12
is a nice number.
That's because you go more than 9, you get a rest day. So I think you do the first 7 days, you get a rest day. You cross the double weekends, and then you've got 12 is enough. A couple of sprint stages, a TT, mount stages, breakaway stage, maybe a nice finish. However they want to do it. I think 12 might be the sweet spot.
Yeah, okay. I could say 14.
Yep.
I could see that. Just one rest day, split in the middle. 2 weeks of racing could be the ticket. So also as this race gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you're going to see, I think, ASO, they will want to try and move it around as they do with the Grand Departs for the men's.
Yes.
So, I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years where they look to try and sell off the first 2 or 3 stages and it's becoming more profitable. So then if you get longer there...
That's what they did in last year in Rotterdam, first 3 stages.
Yeah, precisely. Rotterdam I felt like that was low hanging fruit. You're just across the border. You know, I wouldn't be surprised they try and get it to the UK, or they try and take it away a little bit further. So
UK would be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be mega. Yeah, and the tour's going there. The men's tour's there as well. So yeah, wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But yes, it deserves its own date, doesn't it?
Awesome. Yeah, it does. It does. And let us know what you guys think. Where should it be on the calendar? Should it be overlapping? Should it be before or after the men's tour? And let us know. Tommy, we'll be back with our recap of we'll probably do a roadside live through the mountains, stage 7, 8, or 9. We'll pick a day potentially, which we'll let you know. And also one other thing, we did mention at the start of last week's episode that Lucy Fitches was going to be doing some or extra diaries with us. She is going to do a part 2, even though she OTL on stage 2 and had a stinker. I told her, look, don't worry about it. We can catch up again another time, because I thought she'd obviously be disappointed. But she said to me, no, this is the real cycling. I feel like people want to hear the real thing. I had a stinker and I can explain it. So she will send me the audio diaries soon, and we'll be able to put that episode
together. Shelters headed her way straight out of the roadside budget. You can go that far to get a slab of shelters to her, can't we?
I can organise something for Lucy, because the last time we saw her was in fact at a beer garden. Remember that, at the Internationals? She was there at Bigger Bar. You had about 10 beers, mate. Tommy was introducing me to the bloody bar manager, because you thought you knew everyone. He's the bar manager.
I know the bar manager. That was the embarrassing thing. That was the good thing. And then came in and it was on.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap this up, legends. This was Roadside, presented by Beers.